Thank you, Mr. Chair. As the great-granddaughter of a Japanese American who was imprisoned during World War II, I'm acutely aware that some of our worst violations of civil liberties in our nation's history have been carried out under the banner of national security. And looking back, we know that criminalizing an entire community made Americans not stronger or safer, but actually weaker and more vulnerable. We must ensure that our response to Chinese espionage does not repeat the egregious mistakes of treating people as suspicious because of their ancestry rather than because of the evidence at hand. Mr. Shed, can someone born in the United States be disloyal to America? Just a yes or no.
Yes.
Can someone who lives their entire life in the United States be disloyal to America? Yes or no?
Yes.
Can someone who is not of Chinese descent be loyal to China? Yes or no?
Yes.
So, we're a country that tends to be focused on classifying by race. But if we look at the ODNI and the FBI China threat investigation, Chinese intelligence agencies do not use race or ethnicity as a primary criteria for their recruitment. They instead focus on specific access, clearance, or expertise of an individual. We also know that a significant share of known espionage cases involve non-Chinese operatives. If we're focusing so much of our suspicion on people with a particular ethnic background, aren't we effectively looking in the wrong places while creating the very kind of fear and distraction and division that our adversaries and their propaganda seek to exploit?
I assume that question is directed at me. Mm-hmm. I think both things can be right at the same time. Both things being there is this imperative by the Chinese Communist Party to use ethnic Chinese in terms of access that they may have. And that is not to say that they are all spies by any means or any stretch of the imagination. However, on the other hand, there's clearly non-Chinese who have spied on behalf, including from my former agency, the CIA. And we know those cases, they're now public because they've been prosecuted, in which the Chinese targeted them in order to get access to, as you referred to it, classified information and all of that. The storyboard of the Great Heist, though, is largely focused on how the Chinese go after their targets, and they will use whatever means is available to them. And I don't believe they do it strictly off of ethnic profiling on their part, but rather what is the requirement that they need to meet. On the other hand, and I think the words were used in terms of, from the chairman, the access, the coercion, and then the incentives. The Chinese government, the CCP in particular, pushes those three lines of efforts against those who they have the greatest part of their access to, and that would be Chinese Americans or Chinese. And again, that is what, it has to be looked at that way because that's how they're leveraging it.
I understand that, but I do feel that we're creating a self-imposed blind spot here by simply classifying vulnerability, potential for coercion based upon one's ethnicity. Quite frankly, China's government wants Americans to believe that competition with the CCP is not competition with them, but with people of Chinese descent. If we're going to allow ourselves to blur that distinction, quite frankly, I think we're handing them a propaganda victory, and simultaneously we're undermining the trust and cooperation that we need for effective counterintelligence measures as well. Right now, and this will be my last question, Mr. Chair, I know I'm running over time, press reports are indicating that the ODNI is working to take over counterintelligence. This is where we need to have that trust. We need to be able to effectively have allies on our side to let us know what's going on. But the DNI is working to take over counterintelligence responsibility from the FBI. And given that the new acting director, Bill Pulte, has zero experience in intelligence, zero experience in counterintelligence, zero experience, quite frankly, in national security, if China is truly, in fact, our urgent and growing threat, aren't we just handing them a huge window of opportunity, especially given China's reliance on pushing the propaganda that we are simply looking at Chinese descent and Chinese Americans and Chinese researchers and scientists and companies versus actually, in many cases, the operatives that they're recruiting based upon their access, based upon their experience, all of these things, which in many cases, a significant number of these operatives are not, in fact, of Chinese descent at all.
Thank you for your question, and I agree that the capabilities of counterintelligence ought to stay with the professionals, and that would be the FBI. They have a long history of running counterintelligence operations. And the second half of your question and commentary that I agree with as well is that the Chinese want to foster this division around race, among many other reasons in terms of creating discord. So it is a propaganda benefit to them to generate that kind of image that we're doing it on the basis of race profiling.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just in closing, I would just remind people that we have been in this place in history many times over, as has been brought up, whether it's the Chinese Exclusion Act, whether it's the internment of Japanese Americans like my Gigi, my great-grandfather. We need to start to learn from the mistakes that we made, that if in fact this is about true competition, if in fact this is about taking out our adversaries before they spy in on us, then we have to learn from the mistakes of our past and not judge people by the color of their skin or where they were born, but in fact take a look at the evidence and really be able to make sure that we're running intelligence intelligently. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I yield back.
Thank you,